And here's in this lounge, I believe that there are families with the older children. And how does the book advise on the switching to a Montessori approach? Is it ever too late for them to start the Montessori in their family?
Well, we always say that it's never too late to start Montessori. Of course, it's always great to start earlier, but wherever you start, it serves your child. So if you have an older child, again, even in the understanding what your child's needs are, you can start to respond to them differently. You can know, okay, the way that they work, where the younger child is more sensorial, like Simone mentioned earlier, the older child is more logical and analytical. So the way that you would present something to a younger child, you might just tell them, this is what we're supposed to do, this is what the expectation is. But with an older child, they might want to know the why. What you have to get their buy-in. So you want to, the way we present things or present issues or expectations to a younger child will be different from an older child. And that's something that you can start, even if the child has never had Montessori before. The way that we interact with our children is respect. So respecting the child, seeing them as people who have a mind of their own, trying to understand what their needs are, what their interests are. That can always be started. You don't have to wait. Even if you haven't been doing that since they were babies, you can start to do that. Giving them opportunities for independence, involving them in their lives, in care of the home, in setting the table for dinner, in preparing dinner. Even if you haven't been doing that all along, you can start to do that with your children. Giving them opportunities to spend time outdoors, reading books to them and with them, giving them hands-on ways to interact with their environment. All of those things can be started at any time in the child's journey. So late Montessori is better than no Montessori. So even if you've never done Montessori before, once you encounter a book, and I think that that's what's great about the book, there are very practical examples of ways that you can start to implement Montessori today. Small changes that you can make in the way that you talk to your child, you interact with your child, the environment that you prepare for your child. And even if you haven't had Montessori before, you can start with those things, I think.
So it's never too late to start right now. Yes? Okay, that's interesting. Is it better to late Montessori than no Montessori at all? Yes? Okay. And there is a question from Rekianing Adawiyah. Hi, Simone and Junnifa. I'm Avi from Jakarta. I'm a special needs teacher. I want to apply Montessori to my students. Do you have any tips and recommendations to begin with? FYI, this is my first time to know Montessori. Oh, is it possible to apply in my classroom, especially to my special needs students? The needs included ASD, ADHD, and selective mutism, and others.
Should I answer?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, Montessori is actually very well suited for children with special needs for several reasons. One is that often it's an environment where they can move, they can use their senses. There are many materials that allow them, regardless of how they learn, there are materials that can engage them and they can use it in different ways. So I think one quick way is preparing the environment that allows for movement and engagement with the materials. And then the other way that you can use Montessori to support your children with special needs is observing them to know what their needs are. So observing them to know what their needs are and then responding based on what their needs are. Because there are several different needs, different special needs, it's kind of hard to give prescriptive recommendations. But I think that a prepared Montessori environment that allows the children to use their senses to move, that teaches other children, that allows them to interact with other children in a way that they are respected, that they are acknowledged, is already a way to support children children who have special needs.
Yeah, I agree. And also I would add is that Montessori in and of itself treats every child uniquely. And so we're always adjusting and making accommodations based on each child's needs, like Junnifa was saying. So if a child, for example, has muscular dystrophy or something with their muscle development, but their cognitive development is still very good, then we would adjust to make sure that the activities are accessible to that child. Or if a child has ADHD and it's that they get distracted really easily by other things going on, then we could again look at setting out the environment, as Junnifa was kind of referring to, where you might have a table that's in a quieter part, or that they have headphones, or some other accommodations that help the child. So you can always adjust what you're doing so that, and I think, yeah, like Junnifa says, it just meets every child where they're at. So it really applies with special needs children as well as with every child.
Okay, so we can observe first and prepare the environment based on their needs. Okay, there's another question from Indy. Hi Simone and Junnifa. School-age children 7 until 11 years old, according to Erikson's physical social theory, they have basic conflict of interest versus inferiority, where they can finish a task. Does the book provide information regarding this matter? And is there any activity or approach we can use from the Montessori method to prevent the children from feeling inferior? Thank you.
I think that's really interesting, because I think Montessori would say exactly the same as Erikson, but in a very positive way. Rather than saying that the child's inferior, we're looking at how can we build the child so that they can feel capable and so that they can build their sense of self. And the whole Montessori approach is about building that child's intrinsic motivation. From a very young age, we see a baby reaching out to touch a mobile, and then a toddler who can pour a glass of water for themselves or mop the floor and take responsibility. And all of those are like deposits in the bank that Junnifa always says. And I love that. It's like their confidence bank every time they manage to do it ourselves. And as the Montessori guide, as their parent or the teacher, we're trying not to intervene too much so that the child can have that feeling, I did it myself. So it's more about capability in Montessori than inferiority, but it's actually exactly the same thing. And there's many ideas in building those things in your home. Sorry, go ahead, Junnifa.
I think the only thing I'll add to that's exactly what I would have said, is that there's so many opportunities that we have within Montessori to build the child's capacity and their sense of self. I think the other thing is that we generally don't compare them to other people. We're constantly encouraging them to be the best they can be and do the best that they can. So when you're comparing yourself to yourself, you're not inferior to someone else. So I think that helps within Montessori, is that even in a Montessori school, the children are not ranked against each other, or we're not comparing them, like positioning them. And I think that tells them. And then also, we're usually like following their interests and their strengths and building, like, from an academic perspective, like what are you interested in? What are you good at? How can you improve? How can we highlight the things that you're good at? And I think that all of those support the child's sense of themselves and minimizes the chance for inferiority. They see, even when they're maybe somebody else's, like in my class, I teach an elementary class, and the children recognize some people are really good, like have a really great handwriting, or someone else draws really well. They start to see those people as resources. They don't see themselves as inferior, because they too know what they're good at. They, like, in a group, when they're working in a team, you can see how they distribute the work, like, oh, I'm really good at making things, so I'll make it, and then you will paint it, and then you will, write the notes or write the directions. And so they see what they're good at. Oh, I think that, I hope that makes sense, is that we're not comparing them with others. We're helping them identify what they are good at and helping them to see that everybody has strengths. And when we work together, we can take advantage of, everybody can bring something different to the table.
Okay. Yeah. So there is another questions from Aurel. Hi, my name is Aurel from Jakarta. I actually got several questions for you, Simone and Junnifa. Can you explain what makes the difference between this book and the other parenting books? That's the first question. And the second question from Aurel is, why do parents have to read this book?
Would you like to go?
Let Simone take this one.
Okay, sure. I love this question actually, because it really does make us think, why do we need another parenting book? But the Montessori approach is so rich, and it's not just about the parenting aspect. We do cover that in like a third of the book, and that's how we prepare ourselves as the adult and how we treat our child with respect and all those kind of things. What I love about Montessori approaches, we also add in the environment, how we can use our home to support the child's development. And we're also looking at our child's unique interests, that observation piece, learning how to observe our child. That doesn't get brought up in any other parenting book. And we have to understand our child and collect all of the data about our child so we can see them objectively and how we can support them. And a big part of that is like, what activities are you going to have in your home based on your child's interest? Is your child into rainbows? And what kind of activities could you set up that explore that interest? Would actually cover so many different areas, from science to language to creative projects and things like that. Or perhaps you have a child that's really interested in vehicles, and then how can you use that interest in vehicles to learn many different things? So it's, yes, we cover how to do the parent, like setting limits with our child in a kind and clear way. Or actually, there was a really good question as well that I saw above, which is like, will our children be confused if we do it only on the weekends because we're quite busy, like when we're inconsistent with it? And I think the thing is that even if you only have small pockets of time in your, when you get home from work until you put the child to bed, you may not be able to do any Montessori activities, but how you interact with your child, you know, you can do it in a calm and careful way, a respectful way, how we get them ready for bed and how they actually get themselves ready for bed and how we approach each other. So I think the more that you can be predictable in how you react, rather than, okay, on weekdays, then I'm really busy and I just tell you all the instructions, but on the weekends, I try and do a Montessori approach. I think that's going to be confusing. But I think in the big picture, if you're not maybe preparing dinner every night with them, but on the weekends you have more time and then you do some Montessori food preparation together, then that makes sense. But I think that the whole way that we interact with our child would be able to be done anytime. So that's, I think, how the difference between this book and other parenting books would be.
Junnifa, do you want to add something?
I think Simone touched on most of the things. I think not a lot of books touch all of the things that we touch on. Tell you exactly how to set up your home and the things to consider when setting up your home. Tell you how to connect with your children, tell you activities, tell you how to interact with other caregivers for your children. You know, you might find all of this information in different books. Like one book, you can find a book about activities, or you can find a book about setting up a home environment. There are not a lot of those, but maybe you can find one. You can find one about positive discipline. You can find one about relationships with your spouse and other people who care for your children. But finding all of them in one book, and then also finding, because there are pointers, like, so in the things where we feel like you can read more, there are also a lot of recommendations for other books that you can look into, or like, you know, if you want to learn more about this topic, here are some books. So I really think that it's a very resourceful book. I think another thing that makes our book different is that we try to offer practical advice. We're not telling you only theoretically. We share our analogies, we share our stories from our experiences, so that, you know, you have something that you can relate to. It's also not, I hope that we don't come across as you have to be perfect. I think that we suggest things that are realistic, and we give a range, like, you know, this is a range of ways that you can consider it. We also don't, in many Montessori books, I'm not sure, sometimes it can feel like you have to buy a lot of materials or you need all of these things, but we really try to focus on the mindset, the view, how you interact. There's some suggestions for activities, but many of them you can use what you already have. So I think those are some of the things that I think make out. I feel like the book is very approachable, and I think that's why, you know, I'm in Nigeria and I can use the book. Simone is in the Netherlands, she can use the book. You're in Indonesia, you can use the book. I think that's something that's different. Regardless of where you are, you can take the information and you can really personalize it, considering your own culture, your own belief system, whether you're Christian or Muslim or whatever belief system you are, you can actually find information that is applicable in the book. And I think that that makes it really unique. I hope that that makes it really unique.